All right, traders, welcome to today's recap. It is Monday, January 28th, and this is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group. So let's get into today's events, also this week's events. We've got a pretty full week ahead of us. S&P was down 81 basis points. The two things that came out today, if you completely, were away from the screens or on vacation, then you may not know about these two events. Otherwise, you probably got hit with them all day long. But Nvidia, they missed. They came out and they were not due to report earnings, but they came out and guided lower and said that they're not going to make earnings. So that drove that down, and some chip stock actually held up pretty well. I think the troubles, of course, this name finished down 14%. So I don't want to say it was priced into the stock because it certainly fell, but one of the things that they mentioned was China weakness that's going on. So switch this up here, and then Caterpillar was the second one. So Caterpillar, their numbers, they were obviously due to report earnings today, and they missed pretty badly, and a bad miss at that. So they finished down 9%. Their conference call, they really didn't say anything too encouraging off of that I heard anyway. They said that the U.S. economy is still strong, but they've got issues globally. So that's what drove the stock down there. And overall for the market, I'll bring up S&P futures. We were down 80 basis points. Really not that bad damage considering, two fairly large companies coming out and saying that their earnings are not going to be good. So where does this leave us? Technicals, basically just still hanging in there. We are still, one of the things that I've mentioned in the weekend newsletter is just a very keep it simple approach. I've been talking about that now for weeks. I said for as long as the major averages are holding above, the 5-period moving average, that's the yellow line, right? That was a great guide on the way down. We didn't get above that until right on 1226. We had one false signal in there, but besides that, prices pretty much remained above there. Now it's definitely lost steam over the last week for the overall S&P. If we go over to the Qs, which I can look at Nasdaq futures too, same thing, same type of story. Those have kind of that's run out as well. We're kind of in no man's land, right? We're kind of caught between the 20, the 50 day moving average. We're inside value. We're just below the 5-period moving average. So we're in kind of no man's land. We've lost the momentum to the upside. Small caps, a little bit different picture. They're still chugging along. We saw a nice call order in IWM. One of the few orders today, it was very slow. It's really nitpicky stuff. I know people who are kind of the I don't one trick ponies, and that's all that they look at is option activity. May try to read into some things today, but I really didn't see a lot of option activity. I think it was mainly small stuff, and mainly for me when I also say noisy flow, a lot of names that report earnings this week. So, and I tend to kind of just avoid when we see option activity in a name that reports. When they buy, like, for example, weekly calls and they report in 2 days, odds are I don't see a lot of edge in those. You can kind of look back and you can kind of see names that they go ahead and buy calls and they report in 2 days, and it's kind of a coin flip. A lot of times they are hedging when it's that close to earnings. If they're not positioning way ahead of time, I feel like a lot of the time they don't know anything. They're just putting a hedge. So a couple names that we did see some option activity. So one name that kind of came to mind in that space was YumC. We also saw a little bit of BABA activity. Both of these names report earnings this week, so I'm not really going to do much with those. Where was the IWM order that I mentioned? Do I not have it on here? Maybe I don't even have it on here. I thought I did, but I'll add it. But there was a nice IWM order. It was a nice size, and small caps outperformed today. A couple other orders. PA, again, this is really small stuff. So, my take if you've been watching my videos. I really don't take many trades on option activity. It kind of just gives me a sense if they are put the wrong symbol in here. Gives me kind of a sense of a trade idea, but I really don't take orders based on thinking that they might know something. A lot of times, 90% of those trades they don't work. Sorry, that's a little bit rough, but for the short-term trades anyway. So I'm pretty strict with that kind of stuff. But PAAS, this is a silver miner. Clearly there's some strength going on in the silver and the gold market. This is a silver miner. And again, you could use the option flow when it kind of creates a little bit of momentum to day trade. So it's different. I'm more of a swing trader, so that's why I say I don't take too many, trades originating from option activity unless it lines up on my system. But PAAS, yeah, some nice strength. Gold finished up 40 basis points, so nice follow through from, closed right around the highs from what we saw on Friday, which was very strong. We saw also really tiny, I think it was Wheaton Precious Metals. This chart actually looks a little bit better to me. And then if we look at the silver chart, considering both of those were silver miners, very similar to what the gold chart looks like. So just to kind of cover the metal space a little bit. NBEV, this is a name that I got long towards the end of last week. It's my kind of only exposure to the cannabis space. But had some more call activity. Again, I think it's momentum stuff. I don't think it's really that they know something. So momentum call buying in NBEV, that's fine. Let it move up here. What else do we see? TELL. This was a little bit more chunkier. We saw one big block that went mid market, but the subsequent order was on the ask, so it looks like they were buying in this name. I do not own anything in this one, but nice move back above the 200-day moving average. A new one that I'll kind of put on the radar. So again, that's kind of how I use option activity, right? You see something, somebody buying calls, and it's like, I'm not really familiar with this name, so then I kind of get familiar with it. A couple of trades that we did today, Cyber. Hell of a trade today. Put this on, this is a name that I've been watching for a while, as well as FTNT. FTNT looks pretty good too here. It just doesn't look like it has the momentum. I tried FTNT about a month ago and it didn't work out for me, so I kind of switched it. I also like Joe Fahmy had a nice piece on it as well on Twitter. So I agree with that. We were able to take a target already. I got into this right around $80. And it zoomed up to 84, and I had a target out, and I mentioned every swing trade that we do at Tribeca Trade Group, I try to put the targets out and definitely the stop price. And this way, it's kind of pre-planned and kind of takes the emotion out of the equation. Also, this was a trade that I did last week that did not work out. It just kind of gave a false signal back on this day, and a lot of the times that's fine, especially when I'm trading stock. I'm trading this one cash, so I'm not going to lose a lot of money when I get a false signal, but I always kind of put an alert back on there because sometimes they're just that for a day, they're just not ready to go. But this one closed on the highs, only up 35 basis points, but I decided to jump back into this one right at the end of the day. It gave me a nice signal. What else did I do today? I put on, this didn't work for me last week. I don't know, maybe second time's the charm. But on the Google weakness today, Google does not report this week. It reports next week. I put a little bit of a call spread on, just looking for, maybe this to move into earnings. It didn't really get too much momentum today, so I don't know if that trade's going to work. But however, I've got it in place. I also day traded a little bit of Salesforce. I thought that the weakness this morning, I bought Salesforce right around the low of the day. This was just a day trade. I'm out of the trade. Also, Visa, I day traded a little bit of that today, but didn't get that big. Right on the first 5-minute bar, I took this, but I got out of it. Again, this was just for a day trade because this name reports earnings. So that's it. Given that we've got a lot of names that report Tuesday, after the close, Apple reports, which we kind of know some of their story already because they, came out a couple weeks ago. Everybody knows that they provided weak guidance, lower than expected guidance. So let's see what they say on their actual report. But we've got a lot of other names reporting this week. So, a couple thoughts. My thoughts on this one, you've got a very, not only the earnings would be enough this week, but being that we're going to hear Mr. Powell speak again, even though there's no rate hike this week, the language will be important. Remember, in 2019, every FOMC meeting now has a press conference, so it's kind of a bummer for me because it just seems like it's an event that you kind of have to deal with. And then we have a 2-day meeting. China will meet for 2 days this week, Wednesday and Thursday. So if you're a little bit worried about all these events, I think you could do a couple different things, right? You can tone down, you can kind of take some of your trades off and increase your cash balance for now, or you could just slap a hedge on. If you're more focused on tech names, momentum names, then maybe a Q hedge. Maybe a little bit of February, a couple dollar out of the money puts make sense. Or if you have a little bit more of a diverse portfolio, then SPY hedge. You try to match your hedge with what your portfolio is. But I think that's a great time to do it right now. The VIX isn't that. Where did the VIX close today? VIX closed at 1887. Off the highs. I think we touched 20. But so it's not that expensive to put a hedge on, and don't be afraid to do that. It's an insurance policy. With all the events this week, I think it makes more sense. With all that being said, also all the buyback plans are off this week, so there's not going to be that underlying bid to the market. So I think it makes perfect sense to have either a hedge in place or a bigger cash balance for this week with all these events that we got going on. All right, that's it for today's recap. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.